We recording?
I
Yes.
just started the recording, yes.
Okay.
Welcome, Mayor.
So Jackie, I'm going to let you walk through this first topic, and then Zach's going to walk us through the second topic.
Okay. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is the water system plan update. And we should have Janine help set up the links for us. So if you can see how they're underlined. So if you click on that first link or on that first title, it should take you immediately to the documents, which are the financial plan. This is the chapter that Katie Isaacson has submitted. We are still waiting on finance. Finance has been pretty busy with budget and whatnot, but we're still waiting on their comments for this chapter. And then we will be ready to we've finalized the chapters. We've finalized most of the appendices. We're waiting on this chapter and the comment period for the SEPA. Notice of or determination of non-significance, and we'll be ready to have the final draft of the plan ready. The anticipated water rate and CFC adjustments are what we're waiting on finance to make comments on. And Katie asked if she wanted, if you wanted her to attend this meeting. I said no, because we're going to be talking primarily about stormwater, and was waiting to see if you wanted her to make a presentation to you or to the entire council about the water rate and CFC adjustments in the future.
Don't you think to the entire council?
Well, that's kind of what I told her, but I wanted your opinion, so.
I think so, rather than repeat anything. That would be great to have the whole thing. It was very well done. It's certainly, we see the need for this increase.
Well, and you know, Katie doesn't work for free. And so if we're going to pay her, we shouldn't pay her twice to make the same presentation.
Exactly.
And I guess just for clarifications, Jackie, we found out that last year we were told that we couldn't apply for DWSRF funding until we have the plan approved. But now we found out that we can apply for DWSRF funding if we have it submitted.
A little codicil to that, Mark, is that I was in the IACC conference this morning when Janet was talking about the DWSRF funding. And yes, it's true that as long as we have it submitted by November 30th, we can put an application in by November 30th, but we have to have the plan approved by March 30, I think it's March 31st, or it'll get kicked back out. So in other words, we have to make sure that we go through as many iterations as we need to get it finalized and approved by Department of Health before the end of March.
So what they're saying is we're going to let you apply with a pending approval, but they won't, because April's when they allocate the funds. So they'll take the applications, they'll score, but they won't make any awards till your plan is actually approved. That's what I'm reading between the lines. So I think that's very achievable. We just need to get this submitted, let it run its course with Department of Health, and then in 2021, we'll be addressing the rate and the CFC issues.
Right, and my plan was to get Noah's or Heidi, whoever, get their comments in to Katie so that she can finalize that during the time right now while the comment period is going on for SEPA. Then we can get that put in, and then the next thing, of course, is to do the actual application for the DWSRF, which we're going to apply for the Well 11 funds.
Jackie and Mark, I'm just noticing when, like on page 18 of this, you have a problem. I know this is a PDF, but you have a problem with your spreadsheet. The columns aren't wide enough.
Yes, Katie,
Yeah.
when Janine set this up for me, she mentioned that to me, and Katie, when she originally put it together so that it would be, when she presented it with an Excel program that she would
Mhm.
be able to jump back and forth. And so commuting it over into this method made it not read correctly. So I apologize for that.
And just for clarification, so that bi-monthly base rate of what 8150, how does that, where are we at today?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I don't know.
I'm on page 18. This is a proposed rate of $81.
That's where we're at today.
Is it? Okay.
But that is, the 10-year, I was going to ask Mark and Jackie, do you think that it's pretty safe to assume that we're going to be looking at moderate growth considering all of the permits that have been pulled and are going to be coming forth as far as a rate is concerned?
Well, I think, and I'll jump in first, Jackie. We spent quite a bit of time, and Nick can probably respond too. I mean, we had quite a bit of conversation with Katie, Nick, and Noah about what our growth projections should be for this calculation. I think we're kind of in the middle. Noah was more wanting to be extremely conservative. Nick was more on the aggressive side. And I thought that what was it, 100 ERUs? I can't remember.
Yeah, the 100.
I think that was a number that we came on and we felt was a good number that balanced the two projections, or the projections versus the more gloom and doom.
And that's
Sure would make a big difference if that was the rate increase rather than the 5.
Yeah.
At 50, I mean.
That 100 is pretty consistent with the other plans that we've put together. So that should be, I mean, you never know, the economy could fall on its ear and housing tanks, but so far it hasn't.
Right.
Okay, so this is knowing that we're going to be doing the actual presentation of the rates and the CFCs at a different time. This was tonight's presentation or meeting is really, originally we only had the storm program status report on the agenda, but Jackie did want to throw this on to let you know that we are looking to get, I guess the key takeaways are all the chapters are ready to submit. We've been waiting for this last chapter. We want to get that in so that we can qualify for the application process. We know that the sewer CFCs are done and the sewer rates will happen when we update the general sewer plan in 2021. So that's a to be determined task. This is also a to be determined 2021 task. We really just want to let you know that the draft of the water system plan, after pushing on BHC for quite some time, we're finally getting ready to get that in because we do want to meet the funding cycle.
So Mark and Jackie, so what's our timeline for the presentation to the full council? Is it December? Is it January? I know you've got to get this thing off to Department of Health, this month probably, I would assume, right?
Yeah, Mayor, updating. Yeah, my plan is to have it at least by the end of the month, at the very latest, into the state. But getting the water system plan updated and doing the rate and CFC adjustments really are not related. We do a chapter in the water system plan that looks at our financial picture and helps give us information in order to set rates and CFC adjustments. But adopting the plan does not mean we have to do the rates that are in that chapter 9. As far as updating the water rates and CFC adjustments, I think that's going to be something that'll probably be, I would say, February or March, wouldn't you, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind getting it, into like the work study in January, if we could just set that as a target. I wouldn't mind jumping in to at least have the presentation at work study.
Okay.
Yeah, we may end up.
Reach out to Janine.
Yeah.
That seems reasonable to me. What about you guys? January work study. We've got the transit's going to give a presentation that night too, but for the Ruby Creek park and ride. I know that's first, and then we'll make this second then.
Okay,
That's
we
probably
can,
a pretty full night.
we can pencil it in, and if we have to move it a month, but I
Yeah.
don't want to schedule it for December. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I'd say we'll pencil it for January. If we have to move it to February, that'll be our fallback. And we got to do that while we still have Katie under contract with BHC, Jackie.
Yeah, that's kind of tenuous. BHC's contract was supposed to be up 12/31, but
Yeah,
but the money has been used up long before that. So I don't know where we are with that contract.
Well, they remember they used up their money. They held Katie's money, and they're not going to bill. They're working administratively right now. So we need to issue them a change order or an amendment for time for now. We'll see if they push back and ask for more money.
Yeah, I'm okay. We'll see what happens with that. Because we've got the 4 other contracts, 2 on calls and 2 concurrency contracts also that probably more than likely will not be renewed in December. And I don't want to draw a big neon sign to that if we're trying to get them to do the water system plan. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they made a commitment to finishing the water system plan. So let's get an amendment so that Katie can do a presentation, and then they can wrap, because they have to do the edits from health anyway.
That's true. I'll extend them through March 31st then.
Okay. Okay, so again, this is mainly letting you know that we're ready to get this turned in, and more to come in 2021. So unless there's any questions, do we want to go ahead and move into the storm program overview?
Seems like it. How soon would we know in 2021 what the growth is going to look like?
Well, we're projecting the numbers that we're seeing, but
Yeah.
until it happens is when it happens. I mean, my crystal ball is not any better than probably anybody else's. COVID's a factor. There's all kinds of factors. There's some cities are projecting doom and gloom, and we're being conservative, but we think that housing is still going to be moderately strong.
Seems like it. Okay. All right, stormwater program.
Do you want me to do a screen share on this one, or?
Yeah, you're going to do the screen share. So Jackie, did you give him?
I already set him up.
Okay, perfect.
So let's see. Please let me know if you guys can see this.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's there.
Hello, I'm Zach Holt. I'm the Stormwater Program Manager for the city, and I'm here to talk a little bit about the program, what we've done in 2020, and how things are looking for us going forward under our new permit that was issued in 2019. So what I'd like to talk about tonight is give you some general highlights on the new requirements for the permit, what we plan on doing in 2020, talk a little bit about our upcoming comprehensive planning effort and the status of our infrastructure as it currently sits, have a discussion about capital improvement program, and looking ahead through the end of our permit cycle, which is 2025. As you're all aware, in 2009, we were issued our first NPDES permit. The most recent permit was out in 2019, and there have been some significant changes to the previous permit that we had, with some increased requirements. These items are going to be discussed in the next slide and at the end of this presentation. So I'll just dive into these real quick. So we've basically been given a list. They spell it out pretty clearly for us, but upcoming requirements We need to finish an update on our construction site runoff ordinance and code evaluation. We should be done with that by December 31st of this year. We need to also go through and evaluate our LID code sections. This one section we're deficient, hold on a minute, evaluation of LID sections of code be completed by December 31st as well. One section that we're deficient in is actually the pervious pavement section. The reason we are deficient in that standard is because we don't really have a defined maintenance component that we can meet with that's reasonable. And a lot of other jurisdictions are really struggling with this. So rather than trying to implement something that could potentially set our crews up for failure, we're kind of holding back on just having that be a blanket application. We do allow it for private developments, but they have to maintain it at their own discretion.
And I guess the background of that is pervious asphalt is not the magic pill that everybody hoped it would be. It does not hold up at all. So I am definitely hesitant to be accepting any pervious asphalt into the city's ownership and maintenance responsibilities. So
Correct. And several other jurisdictions have been struggling with this as well. It's really expensive to buy the machinery that's currently on the market. And we're basically holding back until there's a better solution that's available. And we're not really getting dinged for it right now because there's so many other jurisdictions that are still trying to explore this option. But we do need to we're required to evaluate our code and find out if there are any ways that we can improve on it. But we did a really thorough dive in 2016, and this has really been the only thing that's been kind of hanging up.
Mark, when you say it doesn't hold up, what do you mean?
Well, one of the issues that we have in Western Washington for maintenance criteria is the development of moss. It's really difficult for us to clear moss from these systems without plugging the infiltration capabilities of it. So most people are trying to pressure wash the stuff off and try to vacuum it off at the same time, which has varying degrees of effectiveness. So really, rather than invest, $400,000 to $600,000 in one of these machines that may or may not be effective, we're kind of waiting around before we really just go forth and implement it throughout the city without really having a solid maintenance program in place to be able to manage it.
right. So that's one of the issues, is whether it's impervious or pervious concrete or pervious asphalt. Basically the pores getting plugged up are a huge problem. All you got to do is drive down Viking Way in Paulsville and look at their green sidewalks that are slippery. It's a problem. The other problem you have is if you have a plat, let's say, is the prep for this is a big part of it. You have to have that underlying gravel, so you have to keep trucks off it, you have to pave it. Well, you get a plat done, and it's this new pervious surface road. Now all the contractors come in and start building the houses, and all that construction debris, landscapers in particular, they plug the road completely. And the only remedy at that point is it's no longer a pervious road. You have to actually remove all that. Now you got people that have moved into the house. Maybe you got half the houses sold and the road's no longer pervious, and you have to figure a way to tear that road up and reestablish the prism and then repave it. That's an issue. And then there's just the physical characteristic of the garbage truck comes in, they go turn to turn a corner, and there's a big massive divot where the tires turned. So there's lots of issues with pervious asphalt.
Yeah, I
There's a
definitely.
few parking rights that have pervious asphalt in there, and that's why I was asking.
Yeah, I know that you did that one off of Sedgwick and Woods.
Yeah, it's quite a ways out there, but we also just did one up in Paulsville as well.
Okay, right, and they've definitely improved, but for, again, for like residential use, or the issue there is even on your facilities, you have the ability to keep everybody off that until everything was done and then pave it. And when you do a housing development, that's not really how a housing development develops.
Yeah, we do have a few neighborhoods in town that do have pervious features within them, but again, they are privately maintained, and less of an issue for us for infrastructure in that light. But they're usually fairly small sections of sidewalk, and driveways potentially are usually what we've allowed for the private development. One of the other things that we are in the process of working on is doing our water quality watershed protection assessment. This is a requirement. This has been a carryover requirement from our previous permit. And we'll have one moving forward in a couple of years here, but the one that I'm discussing currently is due in our reporting cycle, which is March 31st. We should have all of this stuff taken care of again on schedule based on it. We're basically assessing the work that we have already done and reporting to them what we've done to meet the criteria of that permit, and that will be in that annual report.
Just a quick reminder, I think, Rob, we're planning on doing this presentation to the full council in the November.
Yeah, it's on an agenda. I can't remember. Yeah, November work study, I think.
Right.
Sounds right.
So you'll have to suffer through it again. Okay. Continue, Zachary.
Okay. So one of the new requirements as well is to do an assessment of all of our receiving waters and watersheds within city jurisdiction. That's not due until March 31st, 2022, but I'm working in with hopefully the future consultant team that we have on staff for our comp plan to try and find ways to address a lot of this stuff in the processing of our comprehensive plan. One of the others is a receiving water prioritization based on that data that we've collected. It's going to be an assessment on existing data. We don't really need to do much for creating new. It's just collecting what's already out there and then ranking each of our watersheds in order of priority. For us, the no-brainer to go to on this one, in my opinion, is Blackjack because of all the size of it and the relativity of it with fish populations and everything else. So I think our ranking process is not going to be as onerous as the assessment process up front. And we need to, in 2022, implement a program. This is one of the big ones that we have to deal with coming up. We have to implement a program to manage, inspect, and enforce local businesses and private property pollution generating sources. A lot of other jurisdictions are looking at upstaffing for this. We currently have budgeted for consultants to assist in this in 21 and 22. So we have kind of a safety cushion there, so we don't need to worry about that just coming up yet. But for long term, it's definitely something that we're working on for planning on how we plan to encompass another enforcement, basically program for the city. And this program is going to be going door to door with businesses, checking on grease traps, checking on, systems, how they're managing runoff from the roofs, et cetera, anything that could be influencing our cumulative municipal separate storm sewer system. In 2019-2024 permit cycle, I need to do another protection assessment by January 2023. That should be another, basically a recap of what we've done since 2021 within the system. And we need to develop a stormwater management action plan for Blackjack based on that receiving water assessment data that we have collected. That's due at the end of the stormwater permit cycle in March 31st of 2023. I'm hoping to have that be as well a component of our comprehensive plan. It's listed in there, whether they get the complete stormwater management action plan or if they just get us the information to be able to finalize it. I'm not quite sure of yet. I think that's going to depend on the proposal we're looking at, but it is listed in there. And one other
back on your, if I may, the inspection and enforcement of local business, does that include the storm detention ponds and things like Walmart has a large one in front of their facility?
It covers most everything related to private businesses, private ownership. If you have a garage on your property that you have potential oil storage issues with and it's not covered, this person or this entity would have to go and contact those individuals. It's an outreach program basically to determine what we have throughout the city that is a potential pollution generating source, such as we don't really have much farming, but farming is one of them. Small businesses, hair salons, things along those lines that could potentially be dumping things in the incorrect places. Food sources, we have sometimes had issues with grease traps in some of the restaurants in the downtown area. You know, it just would be in a door-to-door inspection program basically to address those types of issues.
Right, this is the IDDE, illicit discharge detection and elimination component, which is different from construction site erosion control code enforcement, like what we're having with a couple construction sites. This is more geared to IDDE.
Yeah, this is more ongoing, long-term type programs.
Yes, we have a reporting requirement for this of screening 20% of our infrastructure and businesses every permit cycle and reporting on it. If we find deficiencies, we have to note them. And there is an enforcement component to this that's required, that if we're getting non-compliance, we have to issue either a citation or some other form of penalty to the business owner.
Right, so for me to just summarize it, there are three major, and correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, there are three major kind of code enforcement, compliance, ticketing arenas. We've got the erosion construction piece, we've got this IDDE piece, and then we've got and then we have our storm pond, making sure that all these private ponds are being cleaned. Those are kind of like the big three, and then we're doing all the catch basins and stuff. But as far as inspection and enforcement on the privates, those are really the three: the ponds, the construction activity, and the IDDE. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, to a point. This does go a bit further than that to incorporate screening of businesses to determine if they are pollution generating sources and if they're using proper best management practices to mitigate for any potential stormwater releases. I mean, it's sometimes it's things as simple as taking your baking sheets out in your backyard if you are in the back of your business and pressure washing them off in the back parking lot. That is a violation of this program. So things along those kind of lines there. I mean, auto parts stores, if they're not managing their stockpiles and storages, if it's potentially getting into systems, restaurants, grease traps, if they're outside of the building and not covered from stormwater, they have the potential to get into the system as well. So
yeah, like a business that had a floor drain that they were doing one type of business, and now they're into oil changes, and the floor drain goes into a storm system rather than into a coalescing vault sewer system. We need to find those and disconnect that and that sort of thing. So anyway, okay, well, let's move on.
Correct. And under our current code, the way that it's written, enforcement component of this, I believe, will fall to DCD as it's written, but I have to double check again because I believe enforcement's going to be paralleling with our IDDE code section, Title 1530. And one final thing that we have to complete before the end of this permit cycle is to make sure that we extend our mapping efforts beyond city-owned municipal separate storm sewer systems to include all private stormwater interties to the city. And that's due by the end of August 2023, or beginning of August, I apologize. So I'm going to move on here unless you guys have some questions about any of the previous stuff that I've discussed here with what we've done in 2020 currently. So starting off with operations and maintenance, this year our crews have conducted inspection and maintenance on 952 catch basins within our system. They've maintained 28 ponds and swales, inspected 28 ponds and swales, of which 16 required maintenance. They have currently cleaned 324 feet of ditch within the city, and they've jetted over 1,100 feet of pipe. This year was a weird year because of obvious things, COVID, et cetera. So we had to operate, we changed our operational procedures. Normally, operation and maintenance of catch basins and piping are conducted by third-party consultants. We ended up doing it in-house this time because we were concerned about hiring outside, and we wanted to make sure that our guys were still working. So city staff did perform that maintenance in-house. During that inspection, only 12 catch basins were found in need of repair, and 3 of our ponds were found in need of minor repairs, but there were really no significant repairs needed as identified by inspection within the city.
Yeah, our big one is our dam problem.
I have a section in here on that. I'll get to it.
Yeah.
So next on,
Do we have the stormwater system in the city mapped out? So we know where all the lines and catch basins and things are?
correct. All of our publicly owned systems are mapped, and that is a requirement that we have that system mapped.
Good.
The one limiting factor for that section of permit that I was discussing previously is the private connection into those systems. And that's something that we'll be able to incorporate, I think, fairly smoothly. So our construction inspection program has been incredibly busy this year. By September, our inspector had already done 554 inspections. 101 of them were land disturbing activity related, and 453 of them were utility or erosion related. We've recently incorporated a drone program, which has really helped us to get really good enforcement documentation for several different sites in town here, and has really streamlined our process. Case in point, when we would do an inspection at Stetson Heights, we had to walk a 104-acre site and be detailed in our notes and capturing photos and everything. It took a significant amount of time for us to be able to conduct that work. Now we can pull up on site, put the drone up in the air, and within about 5 to 10 minutes, we have a complete site inspection done with the ability to zoom in on problem areas, et cetera. And it's time-stamped. We can take GPS locations if we need it. It's been an incredible enhancement to the program, and it's really streamlined the processes for us. Of 136 permitted active developments in 2020, only 2 of them have had compliance issues. That's pretty impressive regionally, I think, if we're looking at other jurisdictions in comparison. So this program has really done a great job of staying on top of what's happening in construction within the city, both in capital and private development. So I'm really proud of the work these guys have been doing. Onto our illicit connection investigation, IDDE, and spill response program. They're all kind of crammed into one currently. We are in compliance in 2020 with all of our outfall screening and illicit connection screening. We still have a few to complete, but we've got till December to do them. So I'm really not concerned about the deadline on that. They're fairly easy to access, and we just have to get in, collect some samples, document what we see, and follow up accordingly. I need to continue working on training with staff for illicit discharge detection and elimination to make sure any new staff that we've had come on are aware of how the program works and what to do if they see any kind of a spill, et cetera. In 2020, we were able to really quickly locate and manage multi-jurisdictional efforts for spill response. Some of these pictures, you can see in the picture above the logo, we had a really strange fuel spill that went out into Sinclair Inlet a few months ago. And it was way beyond our capabilities to manage in a quick and efficient method. So we were able to call in not only the Coast Guard, the guys off in the distance in that picture in the orange jackets, but we were also able to get some assistance from Fish and Wildlife, who had their boat out in the bay already. And they were able to get an oil boom out that we were able to use from our spill container that we co-share with Bremerton down at the marina, and contain the bigger aspects of that oil spill, and then get absorbent materials placed to manage it. We still have no idea where any of that fuel came from, but we haven't seen any of it since. So it was either a localized incident with a boat out in the inlet, or something upland that we were unable to trace through our screening program.
And I guess on that note, I know that a lot of people joke, and the police chief is pretty frustrated with my frustration over the number of either abandoned sinking boats. I think we had 4 boats that have sunk in the last 2 or 3 years, and then the boats that people are actually living on because they buy them for $1 at an auction and they go park them, and they're not using sanitation. Our challenge is that we're trying, on top of our discharges from the uplands into the Sinclair Inlet, we also have an EPA mandate, which is the total daily maximum load, the TMDL, And when we have boats that are sinking, people that are living on them, it's skewing our results, and we're not meeting our TMDL standards because we've got these people that are just living or just dumping a boat off that eventually sinks and it's got fuel in it. So it is a problem. And I wish DNR and the Coast Guard would be more active in enforcing their own regulations so that we didn't have to. But this is kind of the tie-in to why that's problematic for the city, just to let those people park out there and have their boat sink.
Correct.
Just in the last couple of days, I've noticed a boat leaning up against the bank as you go out just before Ross Point.
Yeah, that one, she bought that from a local marina for $1 and she moved it out and it sank about a week later. And now she's just walked away from it.
Yeah, some of them are more difficult than others, but each one of these, when they result in an incident, we have to go through our response protocol for all of this. And we do have a lot of intertie with the police department with this as well, but for reporting purposes, ultimately that comes back to us to make sure that we're conveying the information and managing what's happening to the maximum extent that we can. The boat that Mark's referring to, they had no fuels located in it, and it had been emptied out of pretty much everything, but it still initiates the protocol. So we have to contact Ecology, and they send out their incident response team. We do basically a co-organized effort on this to make sure that we manage it for local and state purposes.
But we've had 3 boats that have sunk just west of Ross Point. And then there was, and a couple of them been removed. There's still one that's still there.
I think we're getting in a rabbit hole here.
Yeah.
Okay. So our features inventory and mapping program, we're on track to stay in compliance. We're in compliance currently. We'll meet the deadline for the private facility intertie, I think, with no problems. We just need to stay on top of it and keep scheduling the way that we have been. So this is a program that's very smooth and operating well as well, for all intents and purposes for the program. So I'm very pleased with how our maintenance of this system is working.
Yeah. And this has come a long way from what we had 7 or 8 years ago.
So, John, this is answering your question right here
Mhm.
about the mapping
Yeah, I was
of.
just going to ask, is that the stormwater system or
Yes.
water? Or
It's multiple.
Of all of our utilities, showing water, showing storm, and showing sewer within the system here.
great map.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
Darren, our GIS, and he's also our lead inspector too. So he was, matter of fact, employee of the quarter today.
Yeah.
Huh.
But this
That is correct.
This all started when we were giving when we bought those 15 iPads. And so when we were going out to clean a catch basin, we also picked up its location. Then we go back later and get information. So it's been a good process. Instead of just trying to hire a surveyor to pick up everything, it's been all hands on deck to get to this point.
Correct. And we do have survey grade GPS equipment for basically ground truthing all of this information. And our crews, as available, go through and update this stuff when they're working in the vicinity for both water, sewer, and storm. So not only are we're updating all of that data that we have previously collected, we're basically honing in on it for resolution. Our collector is good up to about the size of a golf ball. So
Is that something that's electronic that you could share? I'd be curious just to look at it.
I'll show you a picture of the instrument. I've got it this is it right here in the, went too far, up on the shoreline in the picture up at the top right. That's the unit. It's portable. We can walk around with it, and it's high resolution. It's survey grade.
No, I was suggesting a map. Is the map such that you could share electronically? Is it?
Yes, of course we can.
I'd like the copy if you can easily ship it to me.
Can
That's
you
a pretty
define
hard-
what specific layer? Because I'm just thinking for the size of what's delivered here. If you have a specific thing or area or type of utility that you're looking at, we can kind of hone it down for that.
File.
Second,
The other thing to consider too is that once you get it, that's a snapshot. It doesn't mean that you're going to have all the updates that happen on a continual basis.
Oh, I understand that. It's just a quick snapshot. No, I don't know. I mean, all of the layers would be fascinating to look at if it could be done as 3 separate maps, one for storm, one for waste, and one for potable would be fascinating.
So,
Yeah.
If it's a lot of work, don't worry about it. It's more of just, it'd be interesting to look at, but it's not critical.
Zach?
Yes.
May I ask, isn't there usually security involved with water system mapping for municipalities? I've run into it not being available in other places, and I'm just wondering, is this something that you make available to the public?
Not
depends.
no.
It depends on the application. I mean, in some instances, and Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong on this, we can give snippets for developers so they know where in the area, if they're doing an intertie or something like that, our utility is, but it's case by case as far as I understand. We tend to not hand out whole system data to anybody for that. Sewers,
Primarily our well locations.
Yeah, wells and reservoirs are the things that are the most critical and that we don't, that is not made generally available to the public. This is something we've been discussing in the Kitsap County Purveyors Group Water Pack, is what to make available and how, so that we could share information with one another, but yet not have it, yet still have it separate from the public. So yeah, but wells especially and reservoirs as a secondary are the most critical infrastructure that we really don't want people to, we don't want to advertise where they are.
Well, it's on a need to know, and I don't need to know, so don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It's just kind of interesting.
we do have it readily available in-house. I don't know about distribution wise. That'd be a Jackie and a Mark question, but I think it's all viewable for internal reasons.
Yeah,
You know.
I think the easiest thing, John, would be that Steve Havert could allow you access, because it's such a big file. And there's streets, there's street signs, roads. There's a lot of different layers that we have. So,
Mark, don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. So,
Yeah, Steve could set him up with an online account.
That's not a good idea, guys. Let's
Fair enough.
network security problems there.
So for public outreach, education, policy, and reporting as well, we are on track in 2020 to meet all of our reporting requirements. We have continued informing the public of our activities, allowing opportunities for feedback through our normal vectors that we do it through, usually through the webpage, telephone. Anybody has questions, we post stuff. We make notification to anybody on the website. If, say, our annual report comes out, they have the ability to review it, comment on it, etc. We still are maintaining our position with the West Sound Stormwater Outreach Group, which is a regional consortium for education and outreach that's made up of Paulsbo, Bainbridge Island, Bremerton, Port Orchard, Kitsap County, Gig Harbor, and Port Angeles. We continue working with other regional policy groups as well. I'm an adjunct member of the Stormwater Work Group. I work with our local jurisdiction caucus as an alternate for the Stormwater Work Group as well. I'm the work group chair for the West Sound Partners for Ecosystem Recovery, etc. We're involved in a lot of different regional policy groups for stormwater and surface water as well, to make sure that we're representing the city in all avenues that we need to. The goal moving forward is to continue refining and improving the program to incorporate the new mandates and updates to our procedure. The management program is a compliance function required by the permit, and our plan specifically is updated annually to show what we're planning on doing moving forward in the upcoming year. This is a little bit different than the comp plan, which tends to be a lot more of a long-range planning document. This is the stormwater management program, and the stormwater management program plan are specifically regulatory driven. The comp plan's way more for capital improvement, long-range asset management, financial, etc. I'm going to move into infrastructure status and comprehensive planning. So the state of the utility in the city, I will say in general, is improving. And a lot of that has to do with our procedural operations improving. We have very clear guidelines in our permit for what we have to and don't have to do if it comes to maintenance and operations. Historically, we've been just kind of reactive for maintenance, doing as much as we can when we can and focusing on trying to fix failures as they happened, rather than really focusing on planning for how to upgrade and maintain these systems in the long run. So our current methods are really getting away from being reactive. Of course, we can react if we have an issue, but we're really trying to focus on evaluating and testing the system for its condition, developing a rating for each of the assets that we inspect, and scheduling maintenance based upon either their age or their condition. It's really been helpful having our new TV truck and our new Vector, because we can not only do this from the surface like we've done historically, where we pull a catch basin lid and check the infrastructure. We can now camera up the lines. We can jet up the lines better. The whole system has become much more streamlined for maintenance and operations, and quantifying and qualifying our assets. As we move toward an integrated asset management program, the information that we're collecting is going to definitely assist staff in making informed decisions about prioritizing neighborhoods and what is needed for projects to improve and keep our systems functioning. So surface water management is another component that's often overlooked in stormwater. This picture kind of speaks 1,000 words. There is a cross-connecting pipe underneath the road there, but this failure was not caused by the pipe. It was caused by the creek that's running right next to the pipe. And that's because of a rain event that happened that just basically caused the creek stage to rise so high that it inundated the road prism, causing it to fail. So we had to respond quickly to fix that. Basically, we ended up getting into the system, exposing as much of the material that we could salvage, and we temporarily bypassed the creek around where the failure was, and went in and installed an engineered log and rock revetment that you can see off on the right here, that is environmentally friendly to protect the road and minimally affect the stream. The system is basically designed to fail inward on itself. And for maintenance purposes, all that we do over time is assess it and add more of that round rock to it as needed. So the rock falls into the stream, moves down through the system, and it's not impeding fish or anything along those lines. The wood's there to kind of hold it all in place and keep everything away from the road prism so that it doesn't impact that structural road component. So in 2020, we had repaired 3 storm-related failures. One of them along the pedestrian pathway down near the high tide, that we had an issue with tidal surge during storm events that was causing it to undermine the pathway. It was a pretty easy fix for us to make. Excuse me. We have one coming up that's scheduled in the next few weeks at McCormick Village Park, where the bridge is. That's going to be another quick and easy fix there, very similar to the one in the picture here. Yes. I'm sorry, I thought I heard a question. So the park, we have to import some more dirt on one of the banks near the bridge, and we're going to be covering it and putting native plantings in around that as well to bring it back to the design. And at Horseman Heights, we have an issue with one of our storm pipes that's emptying onto county property that's eroding an adjacent property owner's yard, basically. So we're going to go in and do a corrective fix in that area as well.
Zach, where was this repair that the pictures are?
This is on Port Orchard Boulevard. This one's a little bit older, but it was a good example of the type of stuff that we're doing storm-related, non-utility storm-related repairs with. So on to the dam safety program. So the city has 3 registered dams within city limits. McCormick Woods is the proud owner of 2 of them. We own this pond here. It's actually at the storage ability to hold over 10 acre-feet of water in it, which now classifies it as a dam based on that storage criteria. So we inherited that by annexation in 2009. It wasn't really an issue for us because the housing development off to the left in that picture didn't exist when we inherited it. but Bremerton built an entire housing complex underneath the spillway, the emergency spillway for this dam. Let me see if I can get my cursor up here. Is the emergency spillway for the dam is actually right here. So it has the potential to impact all of these homes downstream. So this dam has now been reclassified as a high hazard dam, which made it so that we had to upgrade quite a bit of the engineering, geotechnical engineering, and our emergency action planning and operations and maintenance for this facility. So we're currently under contract with, thankfully, the consultant that designed it. That was really helpful for us in expediting this. They will be done with all of their recommendations by the end of this year. And currently we have our draft emergency action plan readily available, but I'm waiting to call it final until we get the data from these studies to update it. And then that will be readily available for anybody involved. One of the changes that I'm wanting to incorporate here is using the DEM reverse 911 function for any of those houses down below that dam in case there is an issue. So they will get contacted by DEM well in advance of any kind of a failure on this to evacuate if this thing's going to have a breach.
Do you have any idea what improvements are going to be needed? How
Well,
extensive that's going to be?
So I've gotten preliminary feedback from our consultants actually today, and from our geotechnical consultant, and thank goodness, the dam itself is structurally sound, and it's passed all of their new seismic testing criteria that they've run it through in modeling. So that in itself is a huge win. We have some very minor updates that we have to do internally to it. And I think we'll be able to complete those in 2021 without really any issues. But the big one for me that was what will happen with that spillway, and if there's going to be any issues with an earthquake or something along those lines impacting that housing development downstream. And they say that it meets all the structural criteria for that, so that it is structurally sound and should withstand all of their modeled earthquake outputs.
Do you have a rough order of magnitude of dollar wise, what it's going to take to bring it up?
For the maintenance,
Well, whatever improvements you need to make.
we need to make some minor improvements to some of the geocell tendons that hold the geogrid cells in place. So all of these areas on the berms around this dam have a geogrid in place. So this dam is lined with a membrane underneath all of this grass. And that geomembrane is what holds all the dirt and soils in place on the banks here. So it's not a life-threatening emergency that we need to repair by any means. If anything, we're getting some minor slumping on these soils falling into the pond itself. That can affect the storage capacity of this facility, but it should be minor if we do have any of these failures. There's some up in this area here, we're showing some signs of wear on the tendons connecting these things. So we'll need to go in and do some, basically they just take it's a nylon rope and they weave in and do a blood knot on the existing tendon that's in there to tighten it down and hold it for anywhere areas that are showing signs of failure or stress. And then
Zach, you're not answering the question though. The question is this maintenance work we're going to be able to do in-house?
Yes.
Or, okay, so there isn't really any cost other than our time, John.
And materials, but yeah, it's negligible in my opinion.
Trying to figure out if we should be sending Bremerton a bill or not.
Okay. Yep. So we're on track with that, and we should have our final report and be able to submit all this stuff to Ecology upon receipt of that information. So on to the comprehensive plan. The comp plan is scheduled to be completed by 2022, and it'll outline the steps needed to maintain permit compliance, manage our assets, plan for any retrofits and redevelopment of our infrastructure, plan for regional management facilities for stormwater, assess and manage our watershed scale assets, refine a financial plan for the utility, and strengthen the CIP program. The plan will also provide modeling data for the pipe capacity, pollutant loading, and drainage of the entire city, emulating the results of our existing ongoing downtown stormwater basin plan. So basically it's going to meet the permit requirements for us for stormwater, and it should give us a good idea for 20+ years on what we need to do for retrofits within the city, infrastructure upgrades, financial planning components, etc. It's a very holistic document that should cover the majority of the gaps that we have currently. So let's talk a little bit about capital improvement. Currently in 19 and 20, the capital improvement dollars from storm went into funding the stormwater improvements at Tremont, and the downtown stormwater basin study, which is currently underway, should be completed early 2021. We also conducted and finalized the Annapolis Creek culvert design to 30%. We're currently asking for 100% dollars for that, but I'm going to transition into that here for our future. So some of the projects that are on the docket for us right now are the design and construction of a South Sydney Regional Stormwater Park to be located to the north of Bravo Terrace. We just missed the grant application window for this year, so I'm going to have everything ready to go for next year. We're working on landowner agreements as well with the property owners in the area to get this really solidified for our application. We also have a grant in with Recreation and Conservation Office for funding 100% design for the Annapolis Creek culvert replacement. Currently Johnson Creek, which is the boulevard in Port Orchard, their WashDOT is working on a project there that will replace the culvert underneath Bay Street. And we have some adjacent utilities upstream of that we would like to see replaced as well. So we're working on getting that moving forward in the near future as well. Also on the books is our Ruby Creek culvert removal at Sydney Road. That one already is in pending grant funding from the Recreation and Conservation Office as well, hopefully in 2021. It depends on what legislature decides to fund for the RCO dollars. We're on the list, we're already ranked. If they fund up to a certain dollar amount, we have the money and we can proceed. Another addition is the recent Bethel Corridor acquisitions that were just approved, funded by Storm Capital dollars for the roundabout near Salmonberry and Bethel. So through 2024, thank you for hanging with me through this. It's a little wordy. So upon assessment, we will be prioritizing our infrastructure retrofits and water quality improvements throughout the city, informing our future CIP processes with the comp plan. Our goals include integrating stormwater management systems that promote citizen interaction with treatment and management of stormwater, such as the parks that you've seen in Silverdale that have gone in. Manchester has one as well. Basically interactive walking storm parks that are multifunctional for us. We definitely want to continue mapping and prioritizing our watersheds and our streams within the city for protection and enhancement purposes, and incorporate, hopefully in the near future, shoreline management practices into our stormwater and watersheds program, just to help kind of bolster what we are currently doing. And on that note, are there any questions?
Zach, nice presentation. Any idea of possible surprises either at the federal or state level for stormwater?
That's a really good question. None currently pending, I will say. We're safe out through 2025 on this, I believe. It's nice to have that 5-year block for this. Looking forward, the retrofit program is already being pushed by phase 1. So going through our our comprehensive planning exercise we're doing now to develop this should slingshot us way up to where we need to be, rather than being behind trying to catch up with what the regulations are asking when the new permit comes out in the 2025 window. So far so good. It's looking pretty clear and well defined. There's nothing scary that I've seen coming down the line that they haven't given us ample notice about.
I have a question in regards to, I don't know what would be considered unofficial storm detention. During heavy storms, we get a lot of storm water there by the baseball fields. And there's what used to be when I was a kid, there was a pond that is just south of Melcher.
Yeah, that's that's Rady Pond.
Yeah.
That,
Are we aware, number one, are we aware of those? Number two, do we have to be concerned about those or do anything with them more than what's been there for 100 years?
So Rady is one of our ponds scheduled for maintenance. The dollar amount on that one was a little excessive for us to complete it in 2020 because we have to remove some trees and we are going to have to do some reshaping in there. We currently, it's a very old pond. We don't really have any design specs that I'm aware of for it. So we're going to have to do some evaluation on that facility. But that whole basin that drains through the ballparks there, and that whole reach is one of the main reaches that are going to be assessed for retrofit in the coming years.
yeah, it's a problematic system where you basically had a natural drainage course that over time just got filled in with people's backyard remodels, and it's just been an issue, and there is no trunk line through there. So with the downtown study, reaching from Bay Street all the way up to South Street or whatever, the goal is to get a trunk line up through there so that, and we'll have to deal with private property issues, so that we can actually have an easement through there. That's one of our problems is, again, you just had a drainage course that was naturally running through and there's no easements. It's just been filled in helter skelter. So it'll be a major retrofit at some point, but we're managing it the best we can right now.
Yeah.
Is it because it's kind of a natural, does it require us to do anything or just leave it alone?
It's altered. It's not really a natural system there. The development of the neighborhood pushed a little bit more of that. It basically concentrated something, say this wide down to something this wide. So a lot of the backyards and the swale to the south of the ball fields there get inundated in repeat heavy rain events.
Okay.
I guess I would say that system's probably undersized for the kind of rainfall we're seeing now. So again, with the retrofit assessment, we're going to have to go through each of these neighborhoods in the city here to see which ones are most important to prioritize and rank. And a lot of the information we're getting out of this downtown basin study will influence that.
And the things that we've done in the last 12 years since I've been here through that system have been Band-Aids. It was repairing the culvert under Shroof Street. It was kind of putting a shallow swale through the middle of the ball field. Moving the water over so that it was up against the bank over there, so it was out of the South Kitsap Pee Wee practice fields and stuff. So we've done what we could do until we get a more comprehensive trunk line and collection conveyance system through there.
Yeah, it's been working for 100 years. That's why do we need to do anything? But
yeah, we get lots of complaints.
Well, I could see backyards kind of south of Shroof Street where it could be, but I know that pond's been there I was a kid playing in that pond, and it really hasn't caused any problems for the water to back up on the ball field. So I just was curious. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the presentation. If we don't have any more questions, Madam Chair, we could go ahead and close this out so you can have a break before your 6:30.
Okay, so I guess the next meeting though is scheduled for November 17th.
Yeah.
Same time, 5 o'clock. Sounds good. So this meeting is adjourned.